Kevin Durso. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. It cannot possibly be a bad time because hockey is back. The Flyers have points, right? We're not looking at a team that's 0-2. It would be a little disappointing, but no, we have a win to talk about on opening night. We do have another game to talk about as well. We're diving right into that as we do. Follow us on social media at YWT Podcast. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso. Find us everywhere you find your podcast, including sportstalkphilly.com. So, all right, diving right in. Season opener. I think that is the correct place to start here.
Sure, we'll go in order. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We don't even have,
and we're going to talk about the win first. Let's be honest.
sure, but we don't even have to start with like after we did the last show. The roster comes like the roster was what we thought it was. We knew it. Right. We knew it going in. That was the point. Like we knew it, and based on everything that happened on Friday, and when
I even said on last week's show, and Noah Cates is the healthy scratch, right? And turns out that
at least in the beginning he was, yes.
Well, for the first game, right? Of course, we'll talk about that Calgary game as well. But we did know the roster heading in. We kind of knew there wasn't a whole lot of news Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The team traveled out there, got a couple of practices in, got a couple of skates in. Not a whole lot happened. Nick Seeler did end up going on the IR. Emil Andre got recalled from Lehigh Valley. He didn't end up playing in either game this weekend, so it's not super relevant.
Andre didn't get there in time for the first game, so it was like I think that was something that they were holding out on until the last minute. They knew they had 7 on the roster anyway, so it was pretty evident who was playing defensively in game 1 anyway. And then they wanted the way I saw it was that he met the team in Calgary for the second game, and then it was, as far as I know, he's going to be around for the road trip at this point. As far as I know. Now, Seeler, at least I saw a couple of reports out from, I think it was more Calgary beats, because I don't think anybody really made it to because there wasn't a real morning skate for the Flyers. I guess it was a loose optional, really, of guys who weren't playing more than guys who were. Like, I think the only guy who skated on Saturday morning that played was Ivan Fedotov in terms of goalie, but everybody else did, that wasn't playing, were the ones that were skating, and Seeler was out there. So maybe that's a good sign. Like, I know he tried, there were videos from some of the beats about he tried to give it a go earlier in the week. It stayed out for a little, then left. It didn't really work. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I know the broadcast has brought it up a couple of times that for all the things that Nick Seeler does and the style of shots that he blocks and things like that, this was basically a pass that just must have hit him in the wrong spot. And it wasn't anything super hard or anything that looked terrible, but it was enough to affect him to end up.
If it slips between a pile and gets you, it's a puck, man. They hurt.
No, but I think what was shocking was that for something that looked relatively harmless and happened on Tuesday before the season started, we're talking a week and a half, and it still wasn't good enough that they felt like he could play. That's where I think the alarming nature is you're going back to October 1st, and it's October 11th, and this is still an issue. Okay. What's going on here, a little bit. And listen, I know where people come from with this stuff, because they come from an area where it's the idea that something's not as big of a deal as it is. Oh, he's day to day. Like, sorry, you've already lost the benefit of the doubt with the day-to-day stuff, because day-to-day has turned into more than a week, and people pick up on that quickly. That's all. Because right away people were sitting there going, so is it like Ristolainen last year, where it was, oh, this little thing, and now he's not coming back at all?
No, I'm willing to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt on the day-to-day thing, just because this time of year, your roster is kind of fluid and you got things moving around, and you had to finalize your roster at the end of camp. And when you put somebody on the IR, you can put them on it retroactive to the first.
Sure.
Just to make the numbers work and to get him back sooner. He is still day to day as far as the current roster goes. Once he clears that kind of IR minimum. I did want to mention, though, that Emil Andre getting the call up is very interesting, because to me that indicates that he's going to play, right? That you're not bringing him out to Western Canada. to play Eric Johnson both
Well,
games.
I wouldn't go that far then. And the reason
Maybe they split.
well, no. The reason I'm saying is because literally pregame, John Tortorella said, I don't know if he plays. Like, I think, like, perfect world, Nick
John
Sealer's gonna.
Tortorella doesn't tell you anything.
No. I know he doesn't, but no, what I'm thinking that means is perfect world. He's not playing he wasn't playing the Saturday game, and maybe we don't need him for Tuesday. That's, I think,
Steelers back is what you're saying?
right. Like,
Okay.
or that they feel good enough about what they've got to this point. I don't know. Like, we'll get into that. Like, I know it hasn't been perfect.
I'd almost rather see him. Like, here's the thing: if you're bringing him up, if you're flying him out, he had a good camp. Like,
I get that he had a good camp. Yeah.
I think that he's the first name for a reason, and the reason is that he had a good camp. And I think you're calling him 2 days into the season because he is the first name on your mind. And I would like to see them give him a game. I don't really care if it's Edmonton or Seattle, but if Sealer's not good to go, I would like to see Andre get in there for at least one.
And this is like, okay, and this is what we get to look forward to all season, I guess, where we're gonna just do the lineup every single night because they're not playing this guy and they're playing this guy. Like, it is what it is. If you do not know, like, I'm gonna tell you right now, year 3, if you do not know how this operates by now, stop listening right now. Like, you have to understand the tendencies by now, and if you don't, I don't know how to help you. Like at this point, like when I hear that, I just assume automatically he's not playing then. Like, if your response is I don't know if he gets in, it means I'm probably not playing him. He's here as an insurance policy. That's my
that makes sense.
And I can already hear half the fan base yelling, but you said play the kids, so like.
Well, and the other thing is, right, whether you like it or not, it's different. Matvei Michkov is on this team. John Tortorella has always been the kind of coach that is more often than not going to put the best lineup on the ice to give his team a chance to win that game.
Right.
Sometimes that means playing Sam Ersson all the way down the stretch to the detriment of the player, as he has admitted since.
Well, that was because nobody else was good enough either. Like, yes, he legit is icing the best team. Like, that's your best goalie, and everybody else, and quite frankly,
but John Tortorella, absolutely, and John Tortorella has admitted that was unfair to Sam Ersson, and it probably was not good for him. But it was what was best for the team, a team that was trying to make the playoffs. And in this situation, even though it's game 3 that we're talking about here, right? Tuesday in Edmonton, John Tortorella is still going to put the best lineup on the ice because he is thinking about that 82 game long view and getting points, getting the playoffs.
Of course.
So I think you might see Andre get benched, and I don't want him to. I would like to see him play. But if John Tortorella thinks that Eric Johnson is the best option for his 6th defenseman, then that's what's going to happen.
Part of the problem there is going to be that it's so early in the season because you just made a decision a week prior to this he's not making the team. Yes, he had a great camp, but he's the number 8 guy and we're only taking 7. So if you immediately feel like, nope, I got to vault this kid in right away, it's kind of like saying, with the exception of Sealer being hurt, obviously, because that is it's a loss. But like, it's kind of like, it's
I have a question for you.
Not like admitting a mistake, but like it's sitting here saying like, oh, maybe we overlooked this too soon or whatever. I don't know.
But here's the thing: is he actually your number 8, or is he better than Eric Johnson? But the waiver situation makes it more viable to send him down.
Well, what, because he's waiver exempt is what you're saying?
Right. And
I'll tell you what it is.
High Valley.
No, the reason he goes down is because okay, maybe he is higher than Eric Johnson realistically. That still puts him 7. If you're still going to answer,
and he's not playing.
Right. If you're still going to answer that the other 6 guys, Sealer included, are the best 6 that you want to put on the ice on a regular basis,
then Andre being a 7 still not going to get him enough games.
It's not even about getting him enough games. What would you rather do at his age? Would you rather him play third pair minutes and play 10 minutes a night, or would you rather him play 20
I want him playing 28 minutes a night in Lehigh Valley.
That's why he goes down.
Oh, I know, and I agree,
And honestly,
But
I think that's why they look for the quickest way out. Honestly, like, oh, if I'm just keeping him just in case I have to play him, and then I can send him back as soon as possible, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but if he is above Eric Johnson and you can pluck him in a situation like this, then you play him over Eric Johnson, right? Theoretically.
but again, it comes down to the minutes game, though. Do they want him just
Okay.
playing 6 minutes a night, like, and
But
run the other five in there?
if he's already here, is 8 to 10 minutes better than zero?
Well, yeah, sure it is, but like in that situation, but I think like we're picking it apart a little too much. I think because we're talking about one or two, maybe one or two games. I don't know where Sealer is on this equation.
Okay.
If Sealer's back by the home opener, let's say, so he misses two more games tops,
Saturday against Vancouver. Okay.
right? Then I don't care if Andre doesn't play those two games, practices with the NHL team now that they're going to actually have practice time, and goes back at that point. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, it's not, to me, it's not detrimental at that point to say he's just here to be like an extra at this given moment, or just in case somebody else gets hurt. That's what it really comes down to, is do I have enough? You got to remember something. When they talked about this, John Tortorella at one point in time said, no, I think the plan is still we're going to carry 7. And listen, I don't care. I'll play with 5 if I gotta. Like, shows you how crazy he is as a coach. Like, he
He's a
admitted
lunatic.
he'd rather start the game with 5 defensemen than bring somebody up who they feel like is better suited. Now, obviously, I think Danny Briere is going to sit there and say, "No, you should play 6 defensemen. If we don't have
play,
6, we better get somebody up here."
play a real roster, John, please.
Right, like, especially early in, I think it goes to early in the season again.
Of
Why,
course.
like at one point in time, the speculation going into this game on Saturday was, I know we're gonna get to the game Friday. We're gonna get to it.
Well,
But the
that's next.
speculation going in was, well, if Fedotov's on the ice for this morning skate that's a very loose opening skate that doesn't have many participants, does that mean Erson's going again? And like immediately in your head, you're sitting there going, why on earth would you do that after you just talked about that all training camp about running a guy into the ground?
Getting
You
a
don't need to,
real
don't run a guy into the ground. I don't know if you're going to win the game with the other guy. That's what you got to find out. But at least like you can't do that to Erson this early. Now, I have a theory of what you can do with him, which is just
I
avoid the
think he
back to
plays
back.
every other game this week.
No, not every other. They don't
No,
have
no,
a
I think
back
he
to
plays
back. He plays
all of
every
the
game.
games this
Yeah.
week, is what I meant. I
The next
apologize.
time they have a back to back is middle of the week when it's the home and home against Washington.
Yeah. And I'll be at that second home game, the Washington game.
So I don't know which
I wonder
one.
if I'm gonna see Fedotov. Because at that point, if you play Urshan Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I could see them wanting to give Fedotov Tuesday against Washington, to then
and
give
then
Urshan Wednesday in Washington.
and then you give, yeah, in
And then you give him 2
Washington,
days off before Minnesota.
and then you probably play Fedotov again against Montreal, and then you go
Yep,
right back to
yep.
the back and forth for a while. And it's got to, listen, it's got to evolve at some point. Like,
Well, Fedotov,
I'm
frankly,
jumping,
and we'll get into this when we talk about the second game, but Fedotov has to be better for this to even be
and
relevant.
I fully agree. But there's something that I'm going to bring up that I thought about last night after the game was over that I just want people to remember when it comes to this. And I'm not trying to defend what he did. I'm just trying to say this is why you've got to give it more sample than one game in the season.
And
Because
I
if we,
understand that.
because if we made decisions based off of one game, something about this Flyers team would be very different. Okay. If you based it off of one game last year, something would be very different. Now that's my tease for that. Let's talk about a shootout win though.
So we're gonna start with the season opener in Vancouver. It was not Vancouver season opener. They had already played and lost in overtime on Wednesday night. They come in Friday. It is their home opener,
Mm-hmm.
and
No, that
no
was at
hug.
home. No, their
Oh no,
first game
you're right.
was
Their
at
first
home.
game was also. You're right. I'm sorry. It was Calgary's home opener on Saturday. I
I
apologize.
actually in the moment I forgot that too because I was bracing myself for like, and I'm
Bubble
not. No,
opener, half hour
I'm not going.
ceremony.
Well, but I'm, yeah. Well, yes, but I'm not going to get into this with like. Let's put it this way. I waiting for, because I mentioned something about what Calgary did ahead of their home opener,
It was
and
very nice.
and of course there was like, of course there had to be that one person who sends back like, can we just get on with the game already or whatever, because I know it's 10:20 at night. Okay, sorry that it's a home opener. Like, everybody
Come on,
does it.
man.
I don't make the schedule.
This is the definition of extraordinary circumstances.
Well, and it didn't matter. Like, to be honest, that's a more subdued season, like home opener ceremony than usual. They probably did their introductions, then they put on TV the part where they do the tribute, and what, I don't
Well,
know.
and Calgary wasn't a very good team last year, so they weren't celebrating anything.
Well, no, I know, but like, and here's what I'm going back to as well. Like, I'm gonna go back and find the point where I actually tweet out like, "Oh, we're underway." It was 10:22. So what is that?
Nothing.
15 minutes? That's 15 minutes after it would have probably normally been. It's about how long those things take.
And I understand we were all very excited for the debut of Matvei Michkov, but relax.
No, this was the second day though.
Oh,
Like,
you're right. I'm sorry.
like that's the thing. It's like you actually got a normal start the night before.
The season debut of Noah Cates.
Well, what time do you think the game on Saturday is going to start this week? It's not going to be 7.
No, it'll be at least.
It's going to be 7:30.
Yeah,
roughly by the time they're done with all of the festivities.
So Vancouver Friday night. Nils Höglander scores the first goal about 13 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
He just got beat. Not really a whole lot to say on that one.
Well, it was a turnover coming out of the zone. So they had turned the puck over multiple times and hadn't gotten burned by it. Sam Harrison was great to start this game. I mean, I forget how long into the game it was, but you blinked and he was up to 9 saves immediately. Like, and part of that was fueled by something that was a very big trend in the first 2 games, which was a lot of penalties in the early going. Like, the Flyers really struggled in that area. And to what they took, I think 2 penalties in the first 5 minutes. One of them was by Matvei Michkov.
His first appearance on an NHL score sheet.
Yes, was a 2-minute minor for hooking.
Yep.
But and to the credit of, really Sam Harrison more than anything, but they didn't score on those power plays. Vancouver did not. So they're doing their part, but it was really like it was a big adjustment because they were really on their heels on those first 2 penalty kills. Harrison was the best penalty killer, made all the saves. And then I think the rest of the way, Vancouver had 3 more power plays. They ended up 0 for 5 on the night. Vancouver didn't get a shot on the power play for the rest of the game. Like the last 3, right? The last 3 were lights out penalty kill. The first 2 were awful, and Harrison was the best player on the ice and kept you basically in that thing. So when but you could feel that coming. Like, you could feel that one team is still trying to find their footing after having 8 days off from gameplay. And let's be real, for most of these guys,
most of it was 10 or 11, right?
Right, it was 10 days off. And Vancouver had played 2 nights earlier. And
real get them.
Right. So they get that. Let's go to the first goal of the season, though, for the Flyers. I mean, because first of all, a power play goal to start the season on the first power play attempt
from your second unit.
Yeah. I mean, all right.
Holy smokes, kids, we're so back.
Okay, now if I'm just being honest here and not trying to bring the mood down from that situation, but they scored on the power play with like maybe 10 seconds left, and like there wasn't a whole hell of a lot going on for the first 70, 80 seconds of that thing. Like, it's actually really funny. They scored on that one. Then they had 3 more for the rest of the game where they didn't score that looked immensely better. And there were, multiple scoring chances, really good movement. Like, let's be real. They scored their first power play goal on a zone entry rush, not getting set up, not quick passing on a setup. It was just a rush play where they caught Vancouver kind of sleeping a little bit. And there was a spot that opened up, 1 touch pass, Brink to Farabee to Forrester down low. I put something out from
they love that in your second unit.
But I put something out from a clip from the Flyers Files on 97.3, which is the new podcast we're doing over there, about how did I kind of call Tyson Forrester scoring the first goal of the season, because I kind of alluded to like he needs to score early. It took him 16 games last year to get his first goal. He finished with 20. So 20 is great. It was a nice round number for a rookie season, but it took him a long time to get that first goal. So, what is that referring to? Oh, really? I'm giving him. Listen, I'm willing to go to 30 potential.
Realistically, 30. Maybe he lights up at some point and ends up with 35.
No, but not to go off topic, but it's a callback to a previous episode we did. Who did I say was going to get to 40 this year?
Did you say Travis Konechny? No, you said I would tip it.
No. It wasn't a
No.
flyer. That's why I said
Oh.
Who's scoring in bunches already?
Was it Dylan Genther?
No, it
Because
was
he's scoring in bunches.
no.
Was it?
It's fitting for what one of the teams we're going to talk about because they did the whole Calgary thing and Cole Caulfield changed his number and already has 4 goals.
Including the first goal of the season, like other than the Buffalo New Jersey games.
Right.
As far as the North American NHL season goes, first goal of the season.
Right, but
Man, you gotta love that. You gotta love that.
Like early return, I'm feeling really good about that prediction. We said he changed his number. He's playing with like something in his heart over this. And I said, watch him go out and score 40 this year, and he's already got 4.
Oh yeah, Cole Caulfield's a problem.
But yeah, like the power play, like we said, the power play got progressively better as the game went on.
As to be expected in a season opener.
And like I said, I really liked it. Like there's something about like Tyson Forster getting a goal that early. I compared it to in the clip. I said something along the lines of the year that everybody really kind of started to fall in love with Oscar Lindblom and what they thought he could become. His career high in goals was 17, and it was like his second season, his second full season, I think, or something like that. And he scored the first goal of the season that year. And it's like, if you just start off on the right foot, like not to jump too far,
you set the tone,
right? But not to jump too far ahead. But like for a while, in terms now, and listen, there was a big reason why he didn't play the minutes he could have, an important reason at that. But for a while, he was the best forward that the team had in Calgary too. Like looked very, very scorish in that game. Like I got one in me possibly.
So here's something I'm gonna say, and if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that I've been a fan of Tyson Forster for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has early potential of being one of those soul of the team guys where when he's locked in, your team is dangerous and your team is scary. And maybe there's times that he's not, and that detracts from your team. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that when he's really on his game, he will make the players around him better.
I think that's fair. One of the things that's interesting to me about him is that he's a pretty fiery guy on the ice. Like he gets very excited when he scores and things like that. He's not
Calgary,
but he's not. He doesn't come across that way otherwise. Now, I don't know if he's going to either grow into that more or maybe it's the parts that we're not privileged to see from my perspective. He doesn't come across as a rah-rah guy. More on the quiet side. He's not usually like too wordy in interviews, things like that, things like that. So he doesn't come across that way. But when he scores a goal, and the one I go back to, because I think for me, it was one of his most important goals last season for what it seemed to represent at the time. Obviously, it didn't. But when he scored what turned out to be the game winner against Boston in March, that kind of reaction is. I would love to see that's what you would love to see in the playoffs eventually. Like, and that feeling and things like that. So
if he's got that ice in the playoffs, he will be a very popular Philadelphia Flyer. I'll say that much.
Sure. I think he's going to turn into one. Like to me, he's got breakout written all over him this year. If he didn't last year. And that's why I'm like really looking forward to the rest of his season moving forward. Like,
and that's kind of why I threw 40 out there. Like, yes, that was a little bit of a joke number. Like 40 is a very elite number in the NHL. But if he truly has a breakout season and gets hot for 2 weeks, that number becomes pretty doable given what we saw out of him last year, right?
So
if he scores 8 goals in 3 games at some point this season, would you really be like, would it really crazy surprise you? Like, it's a lot. I know that's crazy, but like
8 and 3 is a little ambitious.
Okay, give me 8 and 4. Give me 8 and 4.
I was gonna go 8-5 to 6. Like no, but like eight
Okay.
and 5 to 6. If you had one of those, like if you had two multi-goal games in there somewhere or something like that, like or even 7-5 for that matter. Like when you're pushing numbers that are like Ovechkin territory, when Ovechkin's on or Matthews when he's on a heater, like a real heater.
I'm
Like
not
yeah.
saying any of that's sustainable, of course.
No. But you just have that 1 week where it's like every time
Everything
I
goes
shoot
in.
right, every time I shoot the puck, it goes in. Right?
Well,
Sure.
and but the thing is, this team's getting to the point where if there's a guy like that, Matvei Michkov will get him the puck.
Probably. You know what? I want to go back to something really quick though, because I'm gonna check his game log really quick from
Okay.
last year. There was like a little stretch where he had a week like that or close to. He
Okay.
played. Okay, I've got no. Okay, I'm not being picky here, but okay, actually, no. This is a perfect spot to do it. So they came back from. I don't think he was hurt here. I think there was just a gap of some
With the
kind.
All-Star break, or maybe the bye week.
No, you know what? The All-Star break was later. That's right. It wasn't
Okay.
usually it's over like the first weekend of February, but they played.
It was
And then
later this year. Yeah.
it was a little later. So he scored a goal against the Rangers on February 24th, 2 against Pittsburgh on the 25th, a goal against Tampa on the 27th, and then 2 against Ottawa on March 2nd. That was like 8
It's
days
6-4.
and 5 games, and that was 6-5.
Oh,
So
6-5.
so
Okay.
6-5 is a capable heater for him in the right spot. And oh, by the way, like right before the break, if you actually go back by game total, not by date, like there's too much of a gap to go by date. But
Sure.
he had 6-4 there, 7-6, and then this is 8 games, and he had 9-8.
Right. And we talked about him not having any in his first 16 of the season. He was relatively consistent over the span of the rest of the season, but it is nice to see him have the capability of getting hot, right? Like that's 9 of his goals in an 8-game stretch. He ended up in the 20 range.
Right. Like I'll get to give you full disclosure. So I just gave you he scored 9 goals in 8 games in that stretch from January 27th to March 2nd. From that took him from to that point in the season. That took him from 7 goals to 16 on the season. So what I'm going off of though is that you got to probably what I would assume, if I'm not mistaken, was about the halfway point of the season, and he was sitting on 7. Had just an incredible 2 to 3 week span where he got 9, and then had 4 over the remainder of the season from March 4th until the end of the year.
When the team was in the process of falling apart.
And did not score in April at all. His last goal was March 30th. So they played
and
what
he's
7 games in April, and he didn't score in any of them. So he closed and that's the streakiness of guys like that.
well, and here's the other thing is something I mentioned to you in the Calgary game is that group of guys who stayed over the summer. And Tyson Forrester is part of that group. Joel Farabee is part of that group. Jamie Drysdale, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go into that in the Calgary game. That whole group, with the exception of maybe Farabee because he's a little bit on the older side, I expect that whole group to look strong for 82 games this year, right? Like the whole team kind of ran out of gas a little bit down the stretch. A lot of us blame Sean Couturier, and I think he wears a lot of it, but the whole team kind of slowed down. And when the pace got ratcheted up for that playoff push, the team didn't have the gas there was no more gas in the tank.
Right.
This year, I expect those boys, now that they know what is expected, and now that they are the core of this team, and they know what it takes to pull a full 82 game schedule to try to make the playoffs, I expect that whole group to look physically stronger this year.
Well, and
especially down the stretch.
And I think that I think the first 2 games have been a really good representation of the things that if it goes well for you can help you win more, and if it doesn't go well could help you lose more. Like you've seen both sides of the equation. The power play chips in this Vancouver game, gets the game tied up. You were not playing your best to start the game. Obviously, I mean you started 2 penalties and you're getting outshot badly. but you survive. Your goalie's really good. Your power play gets a goal to tie it up. That changes a power play goal there changes the whole outlook of the first period. You're tied.
Absolutely.
Okay, you have a defensive breakdown in the second period that gives Vancouver the lead back. But you come out and your third period turns out to be the best period you play. You have a good response, early response. You're pushing for the game winner. They ended up
And Matvei Michkov showed up. We'll talk about that.
Well, I mean, we can get right into it right now because we're on this game. Like his best period was the third period. That felt like, and let's be honest, it's 1,000%, or at least to me, I think the reason why it felt that way is you've got these so far. You've got a game where how is he supposed to get into a rhythm in a game where he spends 2 minutes in the penalty box? He's not on penalty kill, so they took a penalty less than 3 minutes in. So he basically what probably happened there was he got his first shift and then had to sit on the bench. His second shift is probably the one right there where he takes a penalty. So now he's got to sit for 2 more minutes. And before, like by that point, we're 7 minutes into the game. And what has he skated? A minute.
It's hard to get into your rhythm, especially when it's your first game and you're a little bit nervous, and there's already all of that going into it.
There's another penalty taken in the second period. In the third period, there were 2 more taken. And he was good, like he was better by then, but there were 2 more taken that makes it
he's just not out there killing penalties. Like
they don't want him to.
No. If Matvei Michkov ends up killing penalties in this league, great, awesome, cool. Not this year. Maybe not next year.
What I do like about the penalty kill after the first 2 that looked like they were on their heels a lot is you also took 2 penalties at pretty critical times. You had a power play in the third period, took one right after it expired. So now you give them an opportunity to build on momentum of a penalty kill. They don't. You get another power play, 8 minutes left. With 30 seconds left on that one, you take a penalty. So now you're going to be on the PK for another minute and a half after those 30 seconds are up. And by the time that's over, there's 4.5 minutes or 5.5 minutes left in the game. I think it is 4.5. It was 4.5. So you're getting down to crunch time in a tie game. You really want to earn at least 1 point for a game that you've been involved in the whole way. Your goalie's played outstanding. And those opportunities are ones that could help it slip away. And it didn't.
Absolutely.
So credit to them for that. But man, like
I have a lot of positive things to say about the penalty kill so far this season.
Sure. Well, I do from this game. I have less about it after the fact. Like the following game. But you want to stick to the Michkov thing, and it's need I say more than Morgan Frost goes below the goal line to him, and he tries to pull off I'm gonna
between the legs,
spin backwards, pull it between my legs and shoot. And he gets a good look.
And he gets a good look.
Like, it should be no surprise that, while we're on the subject of him, we'll kind of use this as a transition point. And we didn't talk about the shootout details just yet, but he did finally get on the board. But like, there was a point in the third period of the game against Calgary where he's setting up opportunities. And I finally tweeted out, it's coming soon. Like, the first point is coming soon. He's setting people up. Someone's just got to finish one for him. He had a play. Well, he had a play in the Vancouver game where he makes a great cut to the middle. He goes right between 2 guys. That it almost looks like, how did you even allow him to go between you? Because it doesn't look like he's even going to try that. And then he does it and just walks his way right through as if they're just standing still, and gets off a good shot kind of through a little bit of traffic. It kind of handcuffs Kevin Lankinen, who was playing for Vancouver that night, kind of handcuffed him a little bit, left a rebound, and Jett Luchanko has a rebound opportunity that I think it got like underneath of his pad a little bit and leaked under, but didn't have any real momentum, so it doesn't go in. It kind of just sits there. They're able to play it back into him. But that's how close you were to how does that work? Having to cut the puck in half and giving both of them one half. Or here, Matvei Michkov, your first point is this part, and here, Jett Luchanko, here's your first goal.
Because that's what they would do. Yes,
right. Like
they've cut pucks in half before.
Well, either that, or I think Michkov's the type of kid who would just rather have the goal puck and would. But what you would do is you would have both of them take the picture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
or at least take one of them where like,
You know what you do? You have them take the picture like the Mario and Yarmir back-to-back picture, just holding the puck, instead of the
that
cup between them, just with
that could be
the.
fun. Actually, I get it. Well, they
Um,
don't have to worry. They don't have to worry about that now unless Luchanko assists on Michkov's first goal. But
well,
he did eventually get his first point, and it's
and I did want to mention Luchanko, by the way, because
yeah.
I thought he looked. I'm gonna overstate this and say he looked fantastic
Okay,
because.
I will tell you. I'll give you the more realistic approach. He looked
Yep,
better than I thought he did in some preseason games.
that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, so I think it was his best game. And I think he looked good in some preseason games, but I think that was his best 60-minute effort, well, 65-minute effort, because he did get some overtime ice, which is very interesting to
Yeah,
me.
let me read off his stat line really quick
Yeah,
from his NHL debut because
yeah,
uh, like Michkov didn't have any points obviously either, but 2 penalty minutes, ended up with 4 shots on goal, which tied for the team lead. He had a blocked shot in there. John Tortorella is gonna love that.
that
Kid,
is.
kid with all the skill in the world
And it was
threw
a
a block,
solid block too.
yeah,
It was,
threw
I
a
remember
blocked
it.
shot in
Yeah,
there, and he played 18:32. Now Luchanko only played 14:36.
which is fine. He's playing lower in the lineup.
Well, I think that had also to do with toward the end. If the power play was moving things well and you could keep them out there like that, you kept them out there like that. Or
Absolutely.
five or I meant to say 5-on-5, 3-on-3 is what I mean. Like
And
I'm pretty sure Michkov
or
got what 2 shifts at least in that
I
overtime.
I really enjoy watching Matvei Michkov in the open ice with the puck. Whether it's the power play, like I love watching this kid with the puck at the face-off circle on the power play.
Sure,
Holy smokes! Like because he can shoot it, he can pass low, he can pass
I was gonna say
across, he can do anything. He can
right,
do anything
right. Because I say why because he looks like he can
because he's
quarterback because he looks like he can quarterback a power play.
because he
Pretty
might
much,
be
right?
he might already be a top 3 best flyer I've ever seen.
I mean, I'm not
And like
jumping. I know. I'm not, and I know, but
just in terms of like pure talent, right?
well,
Whether
he
whether
thinks the
whether that
game
gets
too fast.
realized.
Sure, well, he thinks
Yes.
it's so fast, and it's like I saw a few people who put out on social probably during the game, like, man, everybody else just needs to catch up to the guy's thought
They
process
do,
more
they
than
do.
anything.
No, they do.
There's
They do.
to a degree they do. I think it's typical early season execution too. Like you tell me, given the second chance later in the Calgary game, he probably has his first point on that cross seam pass that goes back door to Travis Konechny. He probably should, right?
Ian, like,
But
how
he gets it
many
later because Konechny's not going to miss on a second chance that he gets.
how many goals did Connor McDavid get Zach Hyman last year?
Oh God, it had to be a decent number. I mean, Hyman finished over 50, and playing with McDavid, it's
The
probably
answer is
in the
50.
range.
Oop,
Well, I'm not going to say that
can you
completely,
hear me?
but yeah, I hear you.
Okay, sorry, I cut out for a second.
No, but you were still going.
Um,
It was the video that cut out more than anything, so we're still
yeah,
good.
he got Zach Hyman 52 goals last year. Now, and I know Zach Hyman got a bunch of those without him and blah 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 blah. Most of them
No, if you're
were
talking
were
power play and
scored.
stuff,
Most of them were scored either on the power play or within 3 feet of the net.
sure. I'd be willing to say that he probably directly influenced 15 of those easy.
Because it took because it took Edmonton so long to find someone to play with Connor McDavid, right? And then they found Zach Hyman, and it worked perfectly. And Zach Hyman then ended up with 50 plus goals, and they ended up in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final.
And then proceeded to score only 2 goals in their first 2 games of the season. Flashback to last year
what
when they
I
didn't win
what
right
I
out of the gate
mean
either. I know. I'm just
what
laughing.
I mean though, right, is that once you find players who can play with Matvei Michkov on that level where they are both on the same page and can just it's going to be special. It is going to be special. Like we're gonna name the line. It's Philadelphia. We love the Legion of Doom. We're gonna name the line.
Sure, and I don't
Whoever
know.
it is,
And I don't know. Maybe down the road it is Jett Luchanko.
I man, from what I've
Maybe.
seen, from what I've seen, and again, one game, we're talking very small sample size. We were talking about an 18-year-old kid. We were talking about somebody who might only play 9 games in the NHL right now. But from what I've seen a player who has made large physical leaps. I've seen a player who thinks the game really well. I have seen one of the fastest skaters I have ever seen in a Philadelphia Flyers uniform. Level, or that he gets sent back to Guelph this year. I think Jett Luchanko is going to be a supreme member of this team for a long time.
At some point, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and let's put it this way: Game 2 did not hurt him in any way, and you'll see what I mean. I know he didn't play, and I know that there's people out there who are going to have gone and watched John Tortorella's pregame remarks about like kind of what goes into the decision and say it has nothing to do with the 9 games, blah blah blah. I agree with the back-to-back kind of thing. They didn't let him play a back-to-back in preseason, so I agree with that. I think that this is fully something that comes from Danny Briere, where this might not be the right situation to burn a game on a kid that is trying to make a point to stick here. And it just doesn't feel like the best spot for him to showcase himself. Like,
and my logic on it is if Noah Cates is a 34-year-old veteran as your 13th forward, situation might be a little different. I might be a little more willing to let Jett Luchanko just kind of run it out and figure out the NHL game. Back to back, get Noah Cates in there. I am completely fine getting Noah Cates a game.
Here's the thing. Within this game, Cates was just okay. Didn't think he played great.
I agree.
And because like, to be honest, I didn't think this guy had a great game in Vancouver either, but he made a play that directly influenced you being able to win the game. So I don't want to take it all away, but I didn't think Ryan Poehling had that great of a weekend.
I agree.
And and when you're talking about the center position and you can do that to 2 guys, you know, and you got to start and you got to think about stuff. I thought Morgan.
It certainly seems like Jett Luchanko is your 3rd best center.
Well, here,
frankly,
I'm going to push it a little, not push it a little further, say he's better than your 3rd best or anything like that. But here's where I'm going with this. Morgan Frost, I thought, had a good first game and then had to kind of gut his way through the second one because he had a moment where he went down awkwardly. It didn't seem like he was completely right for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he was for sure.
The good news is they get a couple of days off. He finished the game. They get a couple of days off. Maybe it was just a bump and bruise kind of thing, and you need to take it.
That feels like one of those things that, like, and I don't know this, right? I have no inside information on this, but this feels like one of those things that, like, he is now injured and probably should just go get it fixed, but he's going to play through it all year and get it fixed whenever.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's how far it goes. If he looks like he's moving better in another couple of days, then sure. Like, you're not going to tell him not to.
And they speculated on the broadcast that it may have just been his air getting knocked out of him. And obviously, if that's the case, then I don't expect that.
Yeah, but then they did for a very little bit, and then as soon as he took his next shift, Brian Boucher was like, "Nah,
he still looked bad. Yeah,
right. Something's not right," and he's trying to gut it out because at the time Tyson Forster had stepped in to fight a Calgary Flame over a hit on Jamie Drysdale. They gave him an extra 2 and 10, so he just sits out for 17 minutes of the game, which
was ridiculous, but whatever.
But you know it's coming in that situation.
I know.
Like, Bush made I think it was Bush who made the point where it's like,
you have to give him a little push.
If you give him a shove and get him into it, sure. And like, so perfect example, Joel Farabee went to do the same thing to Blake Coleman after same situation. Coleman laid a hit on Drysdale and
Drysdale was a target.
Yeah, a little bit. And Farabee ended up.
I didn't realize how big and physical Calgary was until that game. And I'm like, man, Kevin Ball's huge and Blake Coleman's huge.
Yeah, they talked about how many guys they have that were like 6'7", right?
Or everyone is just like enormous. I'm like, when did every huge guy in the NHL just go to Calgary? Okay.
Yeah, I hear you. But like, so he goes to go do the same thing. He ends up actually dropping the gloves. There's no fight that actually happens, which they mentioned on the broadcast. Sometimes they can get you for a penalty there for just unsportsmanlike. They can
throw you in absolutely get you two for unsportsmanlike there.
But at least Farabee had said after the game something along the lines of, I asked him to go. He said yes. And then when I dropped my gloves, he skated away. And I've never had that happen to me before. So, like, but whatever. That I feel like in that situation would have resulted in nothing further than 5 each,
I
because
agree.
there's a little bit more,
There's a back and
like,
forth to it.
like,
It's
okay.
not somebody getting pulled into a fight.
Well, like, here's an example. When I watched Tyson Forrester do what he did in that situation, he came in looking exactly the way it is when they no,
His gloves were down before the other dude turned
but
around.
it looked exactly the same way it looks how they try to simulate it in the NHL games. The gloves are
Where
off from the spot where I'm standing, and I'm
yep,
making a beeline for you with my gloves already off. I'm going to do this.
I'm gonna
Now,
grab you by the shoulder and spin you around. Yep.
he was probably the last guy I expected to do that.
Same.
Like, didn't expect to see him be the one to drop the gloves in this game.
Telling you, man. I said it to you in that text message. The core of this team is that group of guys that stayed over the summer. And it's exactly
And the
stuff
two
like
young
that.
guys that didn't know where they stood completely until they got
And
here. Yeah.
we're standing up and defending each other in game 2 in situations where we don't fight. Like typically, right? We talked about
Right.
how many fights did Joel Farabee have in his career? I know he fought in his rookie game against Boston,
I want to
and
say it's something like
I think
3.
he's got a couple, right? Like he does have a couple of dances on his card, but not many.
Right.
And Tyson Forster doesn't have any more.
Speaking of hits like that can kind of generate something. Where Jett Luchanko took a nice lick late in that game too. It didn't result in a
Yeah,
fight,
he did.
but he took
Yeah,
a
he
nice
did.
lick and popped back up. Where it's like, I saw a lot of like responses to that, kind of like a that's your welcome to the NHL moment. You just took a big hit from a veteran guy.
And it
This
just
what
popped right up out of it.
this is what it's going to be like. And he talked after the game and said something along the lines of, it's going to happen at some point. Just
Sure,
you take it
absolutely.
and you keep playing. Like, but
And you
I
have to
think,
respect that
right.
attitude out of the
But
kid,
I think
for
that
sure.
I think him getting scratched in game 2 had everything to do with, if this is one of these games where we don't feel like don't feel like we take a whole lot from it, that's as much on the positive side. So it doesn't help if he has a good game, because it might be tougher to see. Let's just put him back out there for the next game where there's more of an extended time frame, and it feels like it puts him in the best spot.
And real quick, just to kind of summarize the end of game 1 here, Cam York scores a couple minutes into the third period.
Yep.
Nothing else happens through the rest of the game. In overtime, the Cam York shot was nice, by the way.
Yeah,
Also
in and
Cam
out
York.
really quick. And I got to admit, they had to stop play because they said no goal at
Yep.
first on the ice. They had to sound the horn, stop play.
But,
I thought
but
it was in when I saw it.
by the way, how did Cam York spend his summer? Do you know?
Yeah, he was around town for a big chunk of it
Oh,
too, right?
okay, crazy. And then they go to the shootout, and who
Well,
scored the shootout winner?
can I stay on the York goal for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Because that was something that's really nice to see early in the year from him too. Is okay, you wanted to play a big defensive responsibility, and you had to put a lot of work in on that last year. But that was a great spot to, like, they had a good cycle going. It's a good centering pass. He lets one go. Great shot. Little bit more of that offensive prowess that you hope he has in his game too, that makes him a more well-rounded defender. I like
and I
seeing that
think
from
I
him
think he's
early.
got that. Yep,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
like, well, when we get to the Calgary game, he's on the ice for a goal against it. Like, yeah, I don't think he plays at the best, but it's like the one mistake it's like the one mistake he made, and like the second mistake that Sanheim had made, that to me brought that pair down a little bit
Okay.
versus, you know, anybody else that we can talk about defensively. Like, we'll get to other guys defensively, but like, I didn't think that the so-called first pair had that bad of a stretch over the first 2, other than like those couple of mistakes that really just got amplified.
I agree.
They get to the they get to the shootout, as you said,
Yeah,
and
so we roll through the rest of the game, we get to the shootout, and Sam
the
Ersson
game
was obviously very good in shootouts last year,
the
and
game
that
that just didn't want
continues.
to end. By the way, like, we had to
I
go
know,
through
dude.
5 rounds of the shootout before they were done.
1 AM. Oh,
Yes, but nonetheless, so the 5 rounds of the shootout, the Flyers shot second. So Vancouver went first. They started, let me find the guy who they started with, actually. Didn't they start with Miller, JT Miller?
I think it was JT Miller, right?
Yeah, Miller went in, got stopped by the glove. Then, for Vancouver anyway, it was Miller, Pedersen, DeBrusk scored. Pedersen did not. Then they went to Connor Garland, who had Ersson dead to rights and just pushed it wide, had it roll off of his stick. And then Brock Besser was stopped. On the Flyers side, they had
Couturier.
Well, Couturier let it off.
He went first. Right.
Michkov went second and tried to move, kind of got it underneath it. He didn't score. Konechny scored to tie it back up. So that forced sudden death. Forrester was stopped. And then the winner by Morgan Frost.
And how did Morgan Frost spend his summer?
Anyway. He was around a little bit, but I don't think as much. I think he goes back to Toronto for a little while too.
Okay. Either way,
but Morgan Frost with kind of like not completely going there, but shades of the Kuznetsov. Like, I'm gonna just take this super slow approach, stick handle a bunch, and then I'm gonna because they brought up that Lankinen in shootouts had only allowed like 2 goals in 22 attempts coming into this shootout. Like, really high save percentage for a goalie in a shootout.
In shootouts, right?
And sure enough, he gets 2 saves right off the bat. And gets, and then
you need Konechny to keep him alive.
And now Konechny beats him the totally opposite way. Comes in with a lot of speed and opens him up a little bit. Then Forrester comes in with the chance to win it. Doesn't then. Like, sometimes it feels like, hey, extending it was great, but that might be the only one you get too. You know what I mean? Like, but like I really,
not the case. Yeah.
But Frost's approach there is pretty good. Like, he comes in really slow, goes wide, comes in like a really good approach, and that's what helps you win that.
Would you say it was spicy? Frostish?
Oh, it was. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, never mind. That was terrible. Moving on. So
it's
Calgary,
fine. It's fine. Yeah.
The opposite of Frost is Heat and the Calgary Flames. That's better, right?
Yeah.
So they go to Calgary. We have our opening ceremony. We have the tribute to the Gaudreau brothers. Very nice out of Calgary. Very, very classy. Expected nothing less. And then John Huberdeau.
It goes off, right? This team has been really, like, going back to the Wednesday opener that they had against Vancouver themselves. This has been a really interesting team in the first 2 games they've played, because I mean, they were getting the doors blown off of them after the first period against Vancouver. Just absolutely falling behind. They gave up the first 3 goals. They get 1 back shorthanded. They give up another one before the period's over. They're down 4-1 at the end of the first period.
It feels like somebody in that locker room said, "Hey, not this year."
No,
not. They have just turned it around.
Well, not really though, because like in the second period, they didn't score until there was 2:59 left in the period. So it's like the second period just went about like it typically does. Like, hey, you're down 4-1. The game just kind of it's moving along. It's going through the motions a little bit. They get 1 before the period's over. They get another one 2:41 into the third period. And then they get a power play with a chance to tie it. They tie it at 8:16. They get the lead at 10:40. They give up the tying goal in the final 2 minutes with, I believe by that point, Vancouver did get the goalie pulled, barely by that point. And then they come back and win it in overtime. And there were a couple names that scored, or that scored in that game. At least it was 2 of them, at least, that ended up having really good games for Calgary. Huberdeau scored in that game, but I thought Mackenzie Weegar had a really good game too, and he scored in both so far.
Turns out that Matthew Tkachuk trade is finally paying off, baby.
Yeah, and ironically, Matthew Tkachuk couldn't play on Saturday due to an illness. So,
that's funny.
Ironically enough, he didn't play that night, and Florida, as a result, lost to Buffalo.
Okay.
Because I think something must be going around or whatever. But anyway, Huberdeau gets on the board to begin with, by the way, just in a fluky sort of way. It's this backhand pass from behind the net that hits him on the shoulder, rides up, hits him in the shoulder, bounces across.
Definitely shrugged it in.
Either way, I don't like.
I don't think the goal should have been called back. I'm joking.
No. I don't like the opportunity that they even have to center it there.
Right. Oh, no, I agree.
or that Huberto has going to the net there for that matter. Because what if it doesn't go in and he knocks it down with his shoulder to his stick? Like
It's right there,
he
right?
might still score on that anyway. And it's
He's
like
on the doorstep with an open
I
net.
don't like what was available there anyway. The Uyghur goal really bothers me though. Now I'll get into the circumstances surrounding that because it was a power play goal, but it's the Flyers penalty kill ended up struggling in situations where they had 3 defenders on the ice. Because by this point you had a 4-on-4 situation and Paling takes a tripping penalty, which contributes to me kind of feeling like he didn't have the best weekend. Like he was in the box a couple times in this game.
And they weren't the best penalties.
Right. So now you're at 4-on-3, but here's what I don't like about this goal is number one, once the shot is actually coming in, Ivan Fedotov is so far back in his crease that like it better hit you, because if it doesn't, it's going in.
Yeah, he's not cutting angles down at all.
He was really, really slow on the pass read, like a full second behind on reading the pass.
Yeah. Fedotov did not look very good.
I described his night as an up and down night because there was a point he made a couple saves. He made a couple saves early in the third period that you're going, man, if they get this game tied,
yeah,
he's part of the reason. But I don't think there was anything.
It felt like that Ilya Brizgalov thing, though, where, like, yes, he is very, very athletic, and he is throwing himself at pucks and making really incredible-looking saves.
Right. Now,
why do they look so incredible? Do they look so incredible because he had to fling himself at it because he was out of position?
There are times there are times where I think it's just reactionary and his big body gets in the way, and that helps. There are times where he makes a save, and I go, even though he made the save, he looked a little shaky doing it. Like sometimes I don't think he has a chance to look shaky on a save, like on some of those big saves, because it was just you're reacting, you get as close as you possibly can to the spot, and you're just big enough that it's a save and it looks right. But there are times where it doesn't look right, and that's the adjustment process. I don't necessarily think that obviously one of the goals in this game was an empty netter, so that doesn't get charged to him. I don't really think that he was at fault for the third, fourth, or fifth per se.
I agree.
You know,
the team played really poorly defensively in front of him.
Like we said, the first one was kind of fluky. So really, the second one is the one I want to highlight. But there was enough in that first period where it was like they were playing a really good 5-on-5 first period, getting a lot of shots, getting a lot of scoring chances, and we're still down at the end of the period 2-0.
Yep.
Because one bad bounce and a goal that it's a power play that really shouldn't happen. Like you just got to be more careful than to go down 4-on-3, and a goal where he makes a bad read and he's too far back in the net.
Right.
So there you go.
And I'm a little concerned because those seem like things that shouldn't be a problem at this point, right? He's not a 22-year-old prospect that's still developing. This is a guy who is supposed to be one of the more polished, as far as prospects go, right? Like he's been playing pro for several years. He's kind of had 2 pro careers if you go before the military and after the military.
Right.
But and maybe that's part of it, right? Maybe he is still physically recovering. Maybe he's still sharpening his game back up. And I hope that is the case as we move forward, because he is making a lot of money to look as poor as he did, frankly. And I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of get rid of him immediately. I'm willing to give a little bit of room here for him to settle down. But after obviously what we saw last year, which I take with very little seriousness, but from what we've seen so far this year, he did look very good.
Right. Now, I want to call back. This is what I'm calling back from what I said earlier in the show, because I'm going to read you a stat line, or 3 different stat lines.
Okay.
They're all going to be the same player.
Okay.
But I'm just going to read you 3 stat lines, and I want you to figure out what I'm reading, okay? 5 goals allowed on 25 shots in an overtime loss, 7 goals allowed on 25 shots in a regulation loss, and 2 goals allowed on 9 shots in a relief appearance. That is save percentages, by the way. So the 5 allowed on 25 is an 800 save percentage. The 7 on 25 is a 720, and the 2 on 9 in relief is a 778, which means that this player started a season with somewhere in the range of 750, let's say, basically a 3/4 save percentage.
Is that Sam Emerson?
That was Sam Emerson last year.
Yep, I know. I remember he had a really rough start, and his ERA was super duper high for like several months, just because of 2 bad starts at the beginning, or 3 bad starts at the beginning.
Three bad appearances, 2 starts,
Right.
and
That's what I mean, right?
Right.
And like I said, I am willing to give some benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But the problem is that it looks like, and I'm not an expert, but it looks like fundamental fixable mistakes that he shouldn't be making at his age.
I hear you. Now,
I'm hoping he just smooths it out. I'm hoping he settles down.
Sure. What I'm trying to say is just don't judge him off of the first game either, because it's like, hey, listen, by a certain point, and I'm going to get to exactly kind of when it was. I'm guessing probably about December-ish, because Sam Emerson was still the backup at that time.
He just wasn't playing very much.
Well, no, but he got his first win of the season in the very next appearance he had on November 3rd. The last game I referred to was November 1st against Buffalo. He came on in relief and gave up 2 goals.
Started on November 3rd.
Then he started November 3rd against Buffalo and made 21 saves on 22 shots and got a win. He was in goal for the kind of infamous, if you will, game that they lost to San Jose last year, where he only gave up 2 goals, faced 19 shots. It's not a bad performance by activity. Like, he didn't get a lot of action, so he gave up 2 goals. And both of them were like, I don't think ones that he needed to have back, per se.
Yeah,
After that San Jose game, he won 4 games in a row from November 10th to December 2nd, lost in overtime on December 12th in Nashville, then won his next 3, all in the same week.
Sure. And obviously, and I think at that point he was probably getting close to taking over the starter job.
Well, he was a lot closer, but he still theoretically had not assumed the role because Carter Hart was still here at the time. Right. But that was about the period where people started to look and go, well, why aren't they just starting this guy? And this is the same guy who in his first 3 appearances had a save percentage that was roughly 750.
400. Yeah, and like I said, I willing to give the benefit of the doubt. I am not jumping on the, ship Ivan Fedotov to Lehigh Valley train. But after a game, it is something that I'm supremely concerned about. And I think through no fault of his own, I think if Fedotov showed up over the summer and that was his first appearance, I think people would be pretty understanding. I think the fact that he was here last year, and even though it was, I think, 4 total appearances and none of them looked very good, right, I think people hold that against him and say, okay, well, right, but he did that, so now he should be ready. And subconsciously, I think I'm doing it as well.
No, but sure.
I'm trying to take a step back, give him a little bit of time to actually adjust to the NHL, to actually adjust to the ice and the angles and this and that, and speaking English every day, just living in a different country. And I think that will go a long way towards, I think once he gets a little time in, I think that will be a better picture of who he is.
Well, let's face it about this game too, and the reason why people feel probably that way is you're down 2-0 after the first period, which means that on the back end of a back-to-back against a team that had not played since Wednesday, you have to chase the whole way. And listen, that's why I said it's kind of a gutsy effort on their part, because they got the game back to 3-2 before the second period was over. They were pushing the play early in the third. They looked like they were going to possibly be able to find a way, and it was finally kind of more or less put out of reach with under 6 minutes to play. Like, you got down to crunch time of the second game and were potentially knocking right on the door of getting the game tied. So that's admirable. You found some of your areas of weakness. You don't want the backup goalie to be an area of weakness. And I was kind of afraid of this. Like, If they don't have a number 2, how are they going to keep the momentum going when they have to play this guy? That's one part. I didn't think the defense played all that well. And I'm talking about like I said, York probably doesn't play the 2-on-1 late really well, but I can't think of another scenario where he had a bad moment defensively, like that cost him in that way. Travis Sanheim doesn't help them on the 5-on-3 goal they give up because he takes the next penalty. He's the one who takes the penalty that puts you there in a spot right after Tyson Forster took the multitude of penalty minutes that make you
your bench even further.
Well, just in a spot where to me that means you don't want to take a penalty. You do not want to take a penalty in that spot with Tyson Forster having done what he just did and getting tagged with 2 and 10 on top of the fight. You don't want to take a penalty there. And Sanheim does, and now you are down yet another guy who would have played penalty kill also.
Yep.
Didn't like the way Rasmus Ristolainen looked on that goal, by the way, at 5-on-3. He kind of loses his positioning there. Haven't loved the first 2 games from Igor Zamula. Haven't really loved the first 2 games defensively from Jamie Drysdale either. Like the movement, if your whole game is going to be based off of I move the puck quick, got to be quicker.
Move the puck quicker. Yep.
Like, so the 2 areas that made me feel like, yeah, you know why they're not making the playoffs? That's it.
Okay.
Because you're going to lose games when the defense is like that or when the backup goalie is like that. You're going to win games when Erson's on his game and Michkov's running a power play really well, and it's all good, right? Like it's all good in that aspect because you're doing things the right way. Now, on the good side of that loss, did they have trouble on the penalty kill at times? Yes. Did they also score with the power kill again? Yes, they did. Sure.
Great system, by the way.
Travis Konechny gets himself going a little bit with a couple of goals. That's nice. I wonder if Michkov can also kind of settle himself down a little bit. Not in the sense like that he was ever really too over the top, but
I think he was trying to do a little bit too much in time.
Well, what I think where it comes from is that when you make as many plays as he did in the first 2 games and don't have anything to show for it, that could weigh on you. Yeah. He got something. Now, I'm sure that when the game was over, he doesn't care that he got something. He wanted them to win the game probably more than anything. And he probably wishes, I set Travis Konechny up for a goal. I wish it was the chance that I had at the side of the net when I got it to him that would have tied the game versus the one after it's kind of out of reach, right? Like, sure, of course you do. And that's why I'm saying, like, there were some positives, there were some negatives. There's a lot to clean up. These were 2 mistake-filled games that leave a lot to clean up.
And they're the first 2 games of the season, so that's not a surprise.
Sure.
You tend to start the season a little sloppy and tighten things up as you go. Yeah. Okay.
So on to the coming week.
Yeah, we just have a little bit of looking ahead here. So you are still on the road. You're still finishing up the Western Canada / Pacific Northwest road trip. You have Edmonton on Tuesday night. You have Seattle on Thursday night, and then you come home and have your home opener against the Vancouver Canucks. You finish the Vancouver Canucks season series next Saturday.
I kind of hope Edmonton has a really good game against Calgary on Sunday night to kind of get, because I think the last thing you want to do is face a team that's 0-3 coming in and
angry Connor McDavid,
angry and hasn't been able to score. Like, if they let them take it out in the Battle of Alberta instead and do whatever,
Fair enough.
Yeah,
right. We're the scheduled loss, right? Like, you have the big emotional game against your rival, and then just little old Philly comes in. You don't need to worry about Philly.
Sure. And I don't know. I don't really know what to make of Seattle yet. Seattle's 1-1. It's kind of like the flyer spot. You don't really know what to make of some of these teams in the early going.
I think they're going to be I think they're going to be the Western Conference Flyers this year, where like they're a team that could make the playoffs,
hangs around a little,
kind of that hangs around, that is in the race, likely ends up falling short, but you never know. You never know. It's the NHL.
That feels like the one that they need to come back maybe with 2 more points in potentially, and then set the stage.
Especially if you don't get any points in Edmonton.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, the thing about the Edmonton game, because we know how Edmonton can play, or I guess the production they can get in short order. Like, there's always, especially for a team that where we have questions about goaltending and defense sometimes and things like that, there's always the possibility when you play a team like that that they can just run the score right up on you. You know, like,
Yeah, when you're facing Connor McDavid, he can, like I talked about Tyson Forrester, 8 goals in 3 games, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
Connor McDavid can have 11 points in 3 games, and
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
insane.
No, it's not at all.
So like they come quick, they come often, they come in bunches.
So, but what I'm curious about is because we've gotten through 2 games now, and Matvei Michkov still does not have his first NHL goal, which I think, like, don't get me wrong, I've been prepped for it. Like,
Oh, I'm sure you
when it
have.
well, like, barring if he would have scored with whatever the time amount left was, I think it was 2.5 minutes or something when they scored on the power, like when Konechny got the goal on the power play and he got his first point, right? I'm not writing a post for that is going to end up going out at the same time the recap could just go out. This is reserved for he opened the scoring in the first period. You should watch this now, and we'll get to the rest.
Highlight the clip.
Right. We want to highlight the clip because it's going to be a big moment whenever it happens.
Oh, and
Personally,
you even saw Travis Konechny immediately recognized it and went over, grabbed the puck. Immediately. First thing he did.
sure. And well, what I like is Michkov did not have any real emotion on his face about it because it's like, well, we're still down 5-3. We're probably losing.
Yeah. And also it's only an assist.
Well, I know, but I think I think he's the type who I think
it was
would
the
get
game situation. I know.
right. He'd get excited if he helped set up. He's probably really pumped if he sets up Konechny earlier in the period where it was 3-2 and they tie the game on that.
Game. Yeah.
Then he's fired up. But I mean, hell, he would have been fired up in the third period of the tie game the night before if he gets an assist and Luchanko scores his first instead.
Right.
You're fired up either way because it's like, hey, we just took the lead on that goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's get fired up about it.
And he's going to be a very team-driven guy, and that we love to see that.
What I'm surprised about to this point is that we've made it even this far. Like I thought for sure he's scoring his first on the road trip. There's 4 games. So I really don't think
you should get hopeful you might see it in person.
Well, no, because what I'm hopeful for.
The Farg will go nuts if he does it at home.
Well, he scored his first of the preseason there, so yeah,
I know.
And that
if
was
he happens to go goalless through these first 2, come on.
Yeah,
or these next 2, I mean.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sure. Well, and listen, you still got the possibility exists for Luchanko too.
Absolutely.
Anybody. It is kind of a shame that they did, like, unfortunately, that the rookie laps get done on the road.
I know, it's such a bummer.
Cool touch, by the way, to let them go no bucket for that.
It was nice.
For just the lap, and then they gave them their helmets, and the rest of the warm-up is what it is, but cool touch.
I will say, something I wanted to note, Jett Luchanko, by playing, did become the youngest Philadelphia Flyer in history.
To make the opening night roster, correct.
Yep. Well, just the youngest Philadelphia Flyer.
Right, but I think the tie-in is that, like, it's when you're on the opening night roster that's what's set up, because I think
did somebody sneak in, like, at the end of a season at some point younger?
Well, no.
Well, no, because he's only 18 years, 3 months. Like, he can't get a whole lot younger.
Right. I'm pulling up who I believe it was to be before that. It was Dainius Zubrus, right? Who was
I believe he's younger than Dainius Zubrus.
Well, he is. I'm saying they were saying with Zubrus is that Zubrus made the team at 18, and because he made it straight out of camp, he was the youngest player.
Okay.
To play for them at the time. Like, his first game should read October 5th, 1990.
But I think Luchanko's younger, is what I'm saying.
Right. No. Luchanko is younger. What I'm saying is that I don't think the differentiation mattered. Like, I think it was I think Zubrus was just the youngest to ever play. Right. And they also use it as he's the youngest who's ever made the team out of camp.
Sure. But what I'm saying is if a guy is 18 years and 3 months, there's no other way he's going to make the team other than out of camp, really. Like, unless he gets right. But the other thing is that if he scores by, I think it's December 10th, he also becomes the youngest Flyer to ever score.
What would that be?
I believe that was Zubrus as well, right?
No, Zubrus scored a goal in his NHL debut.
Well,
On
right,
October
and I'm
5th.
saying
No, on October 5th. Oh, so yeah, well, you're giving him the
what I'm
extra
saying,
days
the
to be
age
younger.
difference is if he
Yes.
scores by December 10th, he'll still be younger than Dinas Zubris was when he scored his first goal.
Well, I would highly recommend scoring it in the next 8 games then.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going
To
to say.
allow that to be a thing.
But here's the thing: if you get through these 9 games and he's your third best center, do you send him back?
I think if he plays the next 8 the way that he played the first one,
If
they're
you,
probably not sending him back if that's the case.
I was
Like,
going to say, if after these 9 games you look at your roster and you say he is a better, more consistent, more reliable choice than Ryan Poehling and or Noah Cates,
well, because also
then
he
I
made
have to keep him.
like he makes a coverage mistake on the second Vancouver goal. A mistake is a
Sure,
mistake. They're going to happen at different
yeah.
places. It didn't end up costing you the game, and I think that's what some of this comes down to is like how successful can the team be around him? Like if he's part of the equation and they're just getting shellacked, like
Then send him.
send him
Let
back.
him. Yeah,
Don't
let
let
him
him be
go
part of
dominate
something like this.
Guelph. Yep. No, I agree. I agree. But man, it's going to take more time, especially because we only saw him once. We only have 1 game to sample on him.
Yeah.
I imagine as we come back to our next show after these 3 games, he will play at least 2, maybe all 3 of them.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you're talking Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, a typical regular season schedule. He gets
maybe
theoretically 3 days off from
right.
playing.
If you're gonna run a bit of a rotation, maybe Cates gets in against Seattle. But I don't know if they're rotating or if it's Luchanko's
Well,
spot and they scratched him because of the back-to-back. That's kind of what I'm curious to see how
that's
they're
what they
handling it.
said. They said it was because of the
I know.
back-to-back. I also think that because it was a back-to-back, they were also trying to say, listen, if a decision has to be made after he plays 9 games, let's prolong the 9 games and not burn a game where we sit there and look back and go, well, he was probably terrible in that game, but we didn't do him any favors by saying you're just
'Cause it
in
was
on
a
the
back-to-back.
back-to-back.
All
Let's
right. You
just
wanna give the kid
say
you wanna give the kid 9 chances to succeed,
right.
within
I think they're
reason.
doing it to give him a better chance to succeed, not to say you did anything wrong and we're just sitting.
Totally.
Or
Totally.
not to say they couldn't handle a back to back. I don't think that's what it is. I think they're just trying to make sure he puts his best foot forward for 9 games is all that there is.
Absolutely.
And don't rule out like they got Noah Cates into a game because of it. John Tortorella said he wants to get Nick Delorier into a game at some point too. Like you can't just have the guys who are extras ride it out on the bench the whole time. Where that happens, I don't know. He's a winger. Maybe it's
Man, looking
something
back, why
crazy.
didn't he play against Calgary? Holy smokes.
Yeah, he would have been the guy fighting
Whoa.
somebody instead of Tyson Forster,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. You have Forster and Farabee dropping the gloves when it could just be Nick Delorier. Hello. Um,
But I'll be surprised if we get all the way through the week and do the show next week and I don't have at least one first NHL goal to talk about.
I hope that is the case as we come back to record next Sunday.
Like I
Uh,
like there's a way I believe like I don't know when it like Luchanko didn't even score a goal in rookie camp, let alone like in the rookie games, let alone the preseason. He had 2 assists. That was his offensive output. So it would like for me, it wouldn't shock me if it took until the home opener or something of the sort for him.
Right.
I don't. There is not a chance with the way I've seen him play so far. There is not. It feels like not a chance that
and it
we get
takes
to next
Michkov that long.
that we get to next Sunday and Michkov hasn't scored, especially
No,
playing
I
the home
agree.
opener, especially with the home opener on tap.
I'm listen, I will say if we sit here recording next Sunday or whenever we record our next show,
No, it'll be next
and
Sunday, I
and
believe.
he has not we'll talk about
Oh,
it.
right. Never mind.
And he has not scored yet. I'm going to be very happy with the tickets I have on my phone right now because I will be at the game on Tuesday against Washington. And if he hasn't scored by then, he's going to be itching for it.
Well,
Okay.
I listen, I've had some good luck saying things on shows and getting production out of it. I said the thing about Tyson Forrester about how I earlier in the week about how I thought he needs to start early.
By the way, I think Tyson Forrester has at least 2 goals this week.
By the way, so this isn't around the league one for you, but there's something around the league that I feel really damn good about after the first week of the season. What was my kind of wild card out there, bold prediction last week on the season preview show?
I don't remember.
that the Utah Hockey Club is making
was Utah.
playoffs this year. And
they're good.
And
Yep.
how many teams, tell me, is this good? Because how many teams in the league have 3 wins already this season?
That would be just the New Jersey Devils, who have played an extra game.
Right. So is being one of 2 teams with 3 wins early in the year good?
It's not bad. Certainly not a bad thing.
So,
all right.
So I feel really good about that. I did said the thing about Forrester. I feel pretty good about saying I think sometime in the next 3 games, Matvei Michkov has his first NHL goal.
And I think that is a completely valid take. That is something great to be looking forward to this week. Home opener on Saturday. You excited?
Yeah, and what I'm excited about is the fact
I
that
assume you're going to be there, right?
Yes, I'll be there, and of course, absolutely, I would not be missing something like that. The first real legitimate home game that Matvei Michkov gets to play, and I'm gonna miss out. No, I'm gonna be there.
You're gonna be in the locker room. I know.
Hopefully we're talking to him after it, because it might mean he did something spectacular.
You'll be on Scrum Lurkers before you know it.
Well, it's because it's not an every night thing. We talked about that. They're not like making him available every night, so it's kind of like they said.
I assume he'll be available on Saturday.
Well, no, I think he won't be if he doesn't have
he doesn't do something.
If it's
to talk about,
if he scores and it's not his first, they might not give him to us. Especially if they get him after his first on the road.
I think they would for the home media, but
they've really they talked about kind of what's gonna warrant
really locking it down on him.
Sure, well, think about it. He debuted. Did he do anything in his NHL debut from a points perspective? No. Does that mean they're talking to him because he debuted? No, they went and you get Jett Luchanko because they don't need a translator there, and he's working on it. But it's the area where it's the area where he feels least comfortable probably, and I get it. People think we're an invasion on the room. I get it.
Totally.
So I get it, but I just find it hard to believe he's going to play 3 more games, get through 5 in his career, and not score.
No, I agree, especially with what we've seen out of him so far. So it is very exciting.
Can't wait to see him lined up opposite of Connor McDavid at some point, right? Not legitimately, but you know what I mean.
I'm already at the point, obviously, if you've been listening to the show, I'm a diehard Philadelphia Flyers fan. I love watching the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to watch Matvei Michkov play 3 times this week.
Yeah, and I'm excited to go back to the home opener thing. What I'm excited for is the fact that listen, I'm not able to go on a road trip like this. I can maybe make some stuff work. A 4-gamer all out.
When the podcast blows up, we'll send you out to Western Canada.
Listen, no, I don't care.
We'll get you your road credentials.
No, it's not even that. It's not about getting the credentials that I have the issue with. It's funding the whole thing is what it is. Is finding.
That's what I'm saying. The podcast.
Right. If you're if someone's paying for it at some point,
we
sure.
clearly have hundreds of rich benefactors who listen to this show and will send us lots of money.
Here's the thing. A lot of people wouldn't be going on this trip if it wasn't for it's the first trip and it's Michkov's NHL debut and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't think people are going crazy over, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton and spend literally a week in Canada before heading back to Seattle really quick and then trying to get back.
And trying to fly in across the country. Yeah, no thanks.
Right. With the home opener 2 days after.
In a day and a half, right?
Right. And might as well be a day and a half with the time change for
between the time change and the flight. It's a day and a half, man.
So my point though is that because I'm not on the trip or anything like that, I'm excited about actually seeing a game in person again. Yeah. Seeing one that means something and especially too because it's kind of a buzzkill that the last preseason home game that would have probably been an audition game for them was the Devils AHL team.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, that Devils AHL game though got Kevin LeBanc a contract in Columbus.
It sure did. Good for him.
Hey, had a hat trick. Next thing you know, he's not. Did he make the team in Jersey? Nope. But he's got a job in Columbus now.
Got something from him. All right, and that is we always root for people getting their jobs. Good for Kevin LeBanc, I guess.
No, I just was bringing it up when it happened, but can't wait to see a real game this week.
Absolutely. I am excited as well. Like I said, I will actually be in attendance next Tuesday for the game against Washington.
I was almost questionable for that game, by the way, until certain other events happen that allow that the sports complex will not be near as crowded.
Phillies suck. But anyway. All right. That'll do it for us this week. You can find us anywhere you find your podcast, including sportstalkphilly.com. Follow us on social media. We're at YWT Podcast. I'm trying to be a little more active on the podcast Twitter this season. But be sure to follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso. He is active, I promise. Hit the bell, get the notifications, do the whole thing for Kevin because he tweets out all the time. You don't even need to watch the game. Just get the notifications from him, and that'll be good enough. It's like listening to it on the radio. All right.
Which you can also do through one of my outlets. So thanks for that.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. All right. That'll do it. Like I said, everywhere you find your podcast, including sportstalkphilly.com. We will be back next week. We are fully into our weekly seasonal release schedule. So until next week, see ya. Home opener, baby. Let's go.